coaches look for is really interesting when they're watching players, isn't it? And typically within sport and PE and particularly and in cricket, the environment that we train in invites us to really focus on technique, because that's all we can see a lot of the time in the nets if we're just playing a traditional net session. So well, what that has led to is an approach where we look for the mistakes, we look for we try and face on error detection, really, about what's missing. I call it the deficit model of, we've got what this perfect technique looks like from the coaching book, and we look at our player and we go, yeah, that's missing, that's missing. So that's a really negative way of looking at coaching, really. And if you think about that in terms of the psychological impact on the player, if you're constantly being told that you're not good enough, what does that do to you as a player, both confidence-wise and in terms of insecurities? And it's no wonder we've got a lot of players who sort of, struggle when it gets hard, because they've been taught to focus on what they're not good at rather than what they can do. But if you listen to a lot of the really top players across all sports, they really focus on what they're good at, and they make sure that they really nail those. And there's some lovely pieces with black players across all sports that I've listened to or watched or talked to who tell you that, like, emphasize your strength. So as a coach, what does that mean? Well, let's not look at it, a player, from what they can't do. Let's look at it from what they can do, and then build from there. And I think psychologically that is really important, but it also changes your relationship with the player, where it doesn't feel like, as one of my students said when we made them adopt this sort of deficit correction model, was it felt like I was being nagged by my mum constantly, or being told off. Well, what happens in those approaches, eventually you just go away. You say, I'm not putting up with this anymore, I'll go away. Whereas if we compared with another approach where we've made our students look at or reflect on the good stuff, and one of the players came out, I thought I could take on the world. Well, just think about that in terms of what that does for your team, and the joy that brings, rather than the angst and the anxiety that is associated with being told you're rubbish all the time. So what to look for, I think, is really important, and I think coaches will find that challenging. I certainly find it. We've been trained through our coaching courses to look at deficits. I can remember doing the level 2 up in Auckland, and it was error detection. That was part of the course, wasn't it? So yes, it's important to know what's going wrong, but if you can actually put it right by the design of your game or the activity that you take, and you can help them correct it without them knowing that they're working on it, really. And that's the skill, I guess, of being a decent coach, is that, like, do you need to tell them that they're no good at it? Well, they probably know. But you can help them to overcome it by a different focus in the way you coach, I think.